Hey there, I'm Chaz Marty from Pair of Dice Paradise, coming to you from the CMON Expo 2017 to talk about a few of the games that we've seen at this expedition. And joining me once again for this series of videos is Marty Cannell from Rolling Dice and Taking Names. And Marty, in this video, we're going to wrap up our discussion about what we've seen here. Just talking about some of the games that we haven't necessarily had a chance to actually sit down and play, the remaining stuff on our list that's caught our eye.
Exactly, except for the first one, we're going to talk about Ethnos, which we have played, and I've played a lot, and we've actually reviewed it on our show. But other than that one, you're exactly right.
3 out of 4. That's a passable grade.
All right, so Ethnos is one of those games that I've talked to you about before, and I said, Chaz, you got to try this.
Yes, you have.
And we got a demo copy from the library they have at CMON Expo, and you got to try it out last night. I call this an area majority game. Now, that's basically, it's really simple. You have cards on the table, you pick up a card, or you play a book or a band of cards.
That's all there is.
And that's pretty much all there is to it, with the goal of trying to get your tokens on different areas of the board, and at the end of the round, you're going to score points based on who has the most tokens in that area. And that's really kind of the whole thing of the game.
Yeah, it sounds dirt simple. And you know what's kept me away from playing this game before the expo?
What?
The graphic design of the board.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Yeah, it is so nondescript, so basic, and small.
Yes.
Yep. You look at it and you think, this is just going to be, the board is almost going to be secondary.
Right.
But it's not. Yeah. Wow. For doing only one of 2 simple actions on your turn, getting a card or playing a set of cards from your hand.
People may be wondering, it's like, how is that even fun or a game? There's
Yes.
12 factions that's in play, and at the beginning of the game, you randomly pick 6 that are going to go together.
Right.
And each of these factions are totally different.
And you shuffle them up into a deck.
And shuffle them up to a deck, and everybody's going to start with 1, and then there's a market that's going to be seated 2 times the number of players.
Right.
So on your turn, you're going to pick up one of those or pick up one of those from a deck. So the card that you put on top is considered the leader. So that determines where your piece is going to go, but also each faction has a special ability, which is important because that's the other cool mechanic of this game. Basically, to put down a token on the board, you have to exceed the number of tokens that's already there by the size of the book that you're putting down.
First time you go into the green country, you need 1 green elf.
Yep.
Boom. And you put now next time if you want to do that, well, you can't just play your green elf card. You have to play 2 elf cards.
Right.
And if you want
or 2 green cards, which could be an elf and a dwarf.
That's true. And you just put your elf on top when you're putting down your pile.
Right.
But now I put my second one. Next time I'm going to need at least 3 green cards to go into that location. And so everyone's making it harder for themselves to keep going into these spots.
Right. But the thing is you can have a hand up to 10 cards. When you play a book or band, you have to discard all your cards, not to a discard pile, Chaz, but back to the market. And everybody's just salivating because the cards in the market disappear quickly, and people just blindly drawing off the top of the deck. And when you put those cards out there and you see people scrapping for them, it's like, great, I just gave them what they needed.
A nice other little consequence of that is usually what happens with these games, the first round is super quick, the second one's medium, and the last one just drags. This is the other way around because it's harder to go into the spaces, so people are just grabbing cards, grab. And that last round went so fast because everyone was just, I just need to collect cards, and then they'd get their book, throw it down. So by everyone needing more cards at the end to get into the countries to continue building, we went through the deck faster to get those cards, and it sped up the end instead of dragging it down, and I was fascinated by how they figure out how to do that.
Now, there's one mechanic to this Euro game that's really kind of odd that doesn't sound like it's a Euro mechanic, and that's push your luck.
Yeah, they figure out a way to actually add some real tension to the end of these rounds.
There's 3 dragon cards that are dealt or shuffled into the bottom half of the deck.
Right.
When you draw a dragon card, you're just like, okay, I've drawn a dragon card. You put it down and draw another card off the top.
Yeah.
When the 3rd dragon card is drawn, the round stops.
Immediately.
There's none of this, everybody take 1 extra turn. It stops.
Yes.
So after the 2nd dragon card is drawn, everybody knows at the table this round could end any time. So people don't want to hoard cards anymore. They want to play as fast as they can. But then they know if they get rid of these cards, other people can make the books that they need to score the points.
Yes. Or, the round's going to end, but now all of the different countries have a lot more of my tokens in them, so I can't go into these. So do I try to get more cards to go into places where I have a lot more tokens, or do I start just going to the places for fewer points, but just ditching the cards out of my hand and placing the tokens and sacrificing points just to get something on the board?
Or you want this round to end as fast as possible, and you always draw off the deck to try to end the round.
That's true, because based on your placement and how many points you think you're going to be able to pull off, you may actually want it to end the round.
To end. And as you play the game, your strategy will constantly change depending on what's in your hand and what's on the table.
Constantly. You can have an overall strategy, but when it gets to your turn, you have to stop, pivot, and figure out what's the best move for me just this instant to implement my strategy.
Yeah, so if you have not played Ethnos, I highly recommend at least going and trying it out. If you like an area majority game, there's a little bit of take that. Well, I guess there is some take that because there's a lot of take that because
cards would get taken and you would hear at the table.
Well, also just you're taking over areas that you think you might be able to win.
Yeah,
so highly recommend checking out Ethnos. This is already out in stores.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. So what's the next game on your list?
We got to do a quick demo of Massive Darkness. This came out on Kickstarter last year.
Yes.
It's more of a dungeon crawler type game, which I enjoy. So it does have like a zombie side feel to it. You're working together as a co-op, taking some actions, moving, fighting monsters. But what I like about it is the leveling up system, where you gain XP by beating monsters.
Yeah.
And there's different classes of fighters that you have, and you can apply XP to your character in order to open up some special abilities. So it may be somewhat of a generic, maybe dungeon crawler, but still, I think it's going to be a game I'll enjoy playing with my family and friends.
Yeah, I didn't really get a chance to play in this. I only had enough time when they were giving the demonstration to listen to the rules explanation. It seemed like they had a scenario mode, standalone scenario mode, and a campaign mode. And they tracked the experience slightly different ways to increase the playability, the longevity of it each way. I thought that was really neat that they kind of approached it differently depending on which way you want to play it to accommodate those players.
It's basically, if you were playing a campaign mode, you gain XP more slowly so that you wouldn't out-level the story or the monsters that you're fighting.
Yeah.
But if you want to play like a single shot, you want to see some of the cool abilities so you leveled up quicker.
Yes, yeah.
So that was very cool.
Yeah.
But the two hottest games I would think probably of this show, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just kind of going out on a limb. It seemed like one of them was Song of Ice and Fire, which I always get confused with Pat Benatar's Fire and Ice. You know the song I'm talking about? Fire and Ice! Yeah, that one. Anyway, so I always call this Song of Fire and Ice, but it's actually Ice and Fire. Anyway, it's based on the George R.R. Martin Game of Thrones series, which is very popular on HBO. Miniature tray-based game that was announced earlier this year at Gamma, which you were at.
Yeah, that's when I think it was first announced.
Yes.
And when they announced the thing, the entire room fell silent. And every head was turned watching the information about this game when they were talking about it. And
like an audible gasp in the room.
Almost, yeah. You were just sitting there and all of a sudden you noticed everyone else is just dead silent and everyone else was just focused in on this game. I have to admit, the only miniatures tactical combat game I've ever been into has been BattleTech back in 6th grade and stuff, and I was into that for a few years, and since then nothing has really pulled me in. Not any of the Games Workshop games as much. I appreciate them, but never really on my radar. This is the first one that has actually made me stand up and take notice again and has interested me enough to think about getting back into some miniatures games.
Right. Now, all they did was they showed off the base game, some of the miniatures, and these are the resin, so they're not the final. And we actually sat in on the panel here where Eric Lang and some of the other people were talking about the game and the mechanics and how it worked. Again, it's a tray-based system, which is like Rune Wars, which is out right now from FFG, or the old classic Warhammer Fantasy game.
Yes.
So you put a bunch of models in the tray, and then the tray moves.
Yes.
But what was neat, in a typical Eric Lang fashion, is he sat actually right at this table. We're sitting at the table that Eric Lang sat, Chaz. I know. He holds up a card, maybe half this size, and says, all you need to know about this game, all that you need to know about this game is on this card.
Yes, it was about that size card.
And it was about this size.
It wasn't even that big.
It's not like a thick book of rules you need. It's pretty much this.
Yeah. He's absolutely right. The card, and it wasn't like 2-point font either. It was normal size card, and the elegance in that approach to a minis game.
Yes. The approachability, the ease of access, the fact that the miniatures are already put together. They're already painted a certain color to differentiate themselves from other factions.
Yes.
You can pull these miniatures out of a box, put them into the tray, get out your little card, and play. Instantly. And that's one thing they really pushed is we want you to be able to take this off the shelf, take off the wrap, put it on the table and start playing now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that alone, the level of accessibility that they're going for is unlike anything I've seen in a miniatures game.
Rune Wars, granted, those are out of the box. They're pre-assembled, so it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
So there's really going to be a huge comparison, I feel, in my opinion, between Rune Wars and this game.
You think that's the one that's going to be most compared to?
To me, I think it will be because they're both so brand new. They're both tray-based systems. They're both pre-assembled miniatures coming out of the box.
Okay.
I think these are the two that will be compared. We got to see some sample gameplays. It is pretty straightforward. You move trays. The attacking's done based on dice. Then what's neat, in typical Eric Layton fashion, there's these hidden cards.
Yes, of course.
A lot of this is building a deck of cards that you can use during the turn with little secret things that somebody may not know about. Cool, a concept of having miniatures off the board influencing the battle.
Yes.
Where if they're on there's a, I can't remember the name of the board, but there's 4 different icons on the board. If you have one of your players there, it could trigger an extra ability on one of the cards that you have.
Yeah.
A lot of nice little twists that this game's going to be big. Now, I think this one is going to be on Kickstarter.
Yes.
Later on in the year. So if you have
Yes.
any interest in it, you want to keep an eye on Kickstarter later.
And
on
I
this year.
heard, though, what they are not going to do the cool mini thing, where the Kickstarter is going to give you the game plus a million different little miniatures. They are going to try and have the Kickstarter just be what it is and release more different sets, but release those to retail to try and not flood the Kickstarter itself with every single miniature.
And at first I was like, oh, but I understand why they do it. So in typical CMON fashion, when you go into Kickstarter, you get tons of stuff.
Yeah.
So I was expecting the same thing. But I understand why they're not, because a miniature game, if the community does not support it and come out to the stores and play in the tournaments, the game will suffer. And this has been shown before where if a company didn't support their game in the stores, it hurts itself. So they don't want to flood all the Kickstarters with all the stuff, and then they don't have to go to the store and buy the extra factions.
Okay, that makes sense.
They want to make sure that the stores will have it on their shelves, that people come in and buy it and play it there.
Based on the nature of the game, it has a little bit of a different dynamic with the player base and the retail base. It just has to by its nature.
Exactly.
I mean,
so
okay,
so I understand the reason for they're doing that. So if you have interest in that, again, that'll be coming out next year. And the other big game that was probably the most popular that we saw that people just keep talking about is
Rising Sun.
Yeah.
Boy, howdy. I have been waiting for 2 days now here to try to get into one of the demos, and it is just like this crowd of people around the table when they're not taking the game away to go show off to some other publisher or something, because everyone wants to see and demo and play and talk about this game.
We have not had a chance to play it because the table's been so busy.
Yeah. And so I'm really looking forward to actually being able to sit down and play it, because it just has an amazing table presence. You know, if it's based on kind of the Blood Rage engine, but adding diplomacy to it, one of my sayings is every game can become a negotiation game.
And that's my fear, is I'm not a huge diplomacy fan. I'm afraid that there's a lot of the stab, hey, let's make a deal, and then stabbed in the back. I'm just not.
You can't have it be too chaotic. You have to have you have to have it be a controlled chaos with that.
But from what I understand, I could be totally wrong, that by doing that you're actually hurting yourself in the game.
I would believe so. Yeah.
There's some mechanical something that happens to you if you do that too often.
We'll find out when we finally get a chance to play it.
Just play it, because it's designed by Eric Lang, who sat at this table. If we have not already established that point,
it was bigger than this, but it was about this size, but smaller than this. That's a really good point, Marty. One of the reasons why we don't have as much to say about Rising Sun is we haven't had a chance to play it yet because we're doing all the other demos and recording videos like this.
And it just hasn't been accessible to us.
Yes.
It's been crowded all the time.
So why don't we wrap up here so
Okay.
we can go see if we can actually get in on a game of the blasted thing.
Let's do it.
Yay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go out and try and find a game of Rising Sun so we can have a little bit more information about it to report back to you. Until next time, while we're doing that, I've been Chaz Marty of Pair of Dice Paradise, along with my friendly co-host, Marty Cannell of Rolling Dice and Taking Names. I want to thank you for joining us for this series of videos, and we'll talk to you again really, really soon. Hi.
We're sitting at the table that Eric Lang sat, Chaz. I smell brilliance. Smell brilliance?
That's me. So actually, Marty, I think that that's a really good point. We haven't had a chance to play Blood Rage, partially because we've been demoing so many other games.
Sun.
I think that's right. Darn it, you. You bring up a really good point. You bring up a really good point, Marty. You bring up a really good point. Okay, no matter what you do this time, I am not breaking character. I can beat him. I can beat him at his own game. That's a really good point, Marty. Because now I don't remember what I was going to say. What is a really good point?